I owe y'all an apology. I actually owe you 2 apologies. One is for this review being so late. We are talking about the Rhode Pocket Blushes today, and one kind of links to the other apology, and that is I didn't know that y'all really wanted like a full deep dive review on these. I kind of feel like my channel had a moment of like another kind of content taking off for a second, and I like chased that down the rabbit hole and kind of lost my spot in the book, you know? And so by the time I came back around to it, I was like, nobody cares about this anymore. And so I prematurely gave one of them away. I bought the whole set myself. I did not get these in PR, but I gave away Juice Box, which is actually not the most tragic one to have given away because it is such an outlier color-wise. It's not one of the in-betweeny browns that really need to be compared to one another. And bonus, the person I gave it to is my good friend Rebecca, who has almost as large of a collection, at least in terms of relevant makeup, as I do, but she happens to be a pale olive rather than a pale neutral, as I am. And so I had her, thank God, what a sweetheart. She is pregnant and sick, but she went and in natural light swatched Juice Box against every other relevant thing in her collection, so I'll be able to include that. I did face swatches of all the other 5, so we can, you know, really compare the nitty-gritty of these, and I'm going to go through all of the details on them and also some of the conversation that's been happening about these since they came out, since it has been a minute. So let's go ahead and jump into the Rhode Pocket Blushes. I'm thirsty. I don't know what happened today, but like my normal hot yoga class, I sweated like 5 times more than I usually do. I think I'm gonna be dehydrated until like this time next week. I was like, ugh. Anyway, the Rhode Pocket Blushes, these were very anticipated, much like anything else that Hailey Rhode Bieber does. It was hyped, it was leaked, you know, it was kind of everywhere but nowhere, and like no one knew everything about it. And then when it finally came out, of course, there was tons of hype. And I bought the entire set as soon as it came out. In fact, I think I was like in the middle of filming a video and I was like, oh! I stopped the presses, bought them, and then got back to filming. So the Pocket Blush, description here, the natural flush. A little blush for a little flush. Our on-the-go cream blush wakes up cheeks and lips with a satiny diffused flush that melts on smoothly and stays all day. It's a lightweight formula that hydrates skin for baby soft cheeks that leaves a glowy finish without a greasy feel. You get 5.3 grams, which is, you know, cream to cream here. There are 6.2 grams in my beloved Focused blush from LYS, and this is only $20. These are $24. So I mean, you know, in ballpark, it's, you know, not the most economical thing in the world, but it's also not exorbitantly expensive. LYS is definitely on the low end of prestige in terms of price, not in terms of quality. So before we jump into the face swatches, I wanted to just mention a couple of other creators who I saw try this product. So my friend Natalie sent me a couple of these creators. One of them I had already seen, but the creator Tony Bravo, her handle is Boni Travo, she tried them, and she apparently had gotten to try them at the headquarters, and she is like a deep skinned black woman, but not like super deep dark, and they work on her. But then I saw Gloria try them, and she's a very deep skinned black woman. We all know her of Youthforia fame, right? She exposed Youthforia for not having a shade for her, and then when they came out with a very deep shade, it was one of the worst releases of all time because it was basically just like black pigment. It was really bad. So I follow her, I love her, but when she used these, not a single one worked on her. She's not someone to kind of sensationalize things, and when she applied each one of these in a lot of, you know, ways of trying it, like trying to make it work, it was visibly unwearably ashy on her. So I guess the disclaimer is kind of twofold. It's like, one, they should have done a better job of making an inclusive shade range, but also that if you have very dark skin, these aren't going to work on you. So I wanted to save you the money and the trouble if you had been waiting for that information. But I'm really grateful to Natalie for sending these to me because I don't get to see every single thing all the time, and I always do try to keep my ear to the ground. I think it's part of our responsibility as creators to watch other creators because we're only one person each, you know what I mean? We only have our own faces that we're working on usually, and so I'm kind of glad that it took this long for me to review them because I have a more full picture of how they work on other people now. So anyway, hopefully that is helpful. I'm going to now jump into talking about each individual shade and showing them to you on my face, with the exception of Juice Box, which will have its own little segment. So the first two that I kind of compare side by side are Piggy and Spicy Marg, because the other three that I have are the in-between brown shades that I think are so nuanced in difference from one another that they have to be compared simply to one another for like disambiguation purposes. So Piggy is described as a baby pink blush. I would describe her as a mauve leaning pink. It's a cool pink, but not a neon cool pink. It's definitely just a kind of desaturated pink. It's been desaturated with like a little bit more white than, you know, than gray. And it does have a noticeable amount of blue to it compared to like what I would consider to be like a down the middle rose pink. It's not neutral. It's definitely cooler than neutral. Spicy Marg is described as a bright coral. I think that that is, you know, quite accurate. We are going to do a coral blush deathmatch here in a minute, which is what we always do when there's a new coral blush to talk about, because it is the most expansive, exhaustive part of my blush collection, although lilac is catching up quickly. But I would say that in terms of corals, just on the face of it, looking at this is a very vivid, you know, leaning kind of neon coral, but obviously it does have quite a bit of opacity to it, and that opacity is lent to it by, again, more white than gray. But I do like that when they went coral, they went truly coral. I do feel like it is a very distinct mix between pink and orange, which is what you want from a coral. I don't love a coral that goes too pink. I want it like to look really juicy, and I feel like this is giving juicy. There is something really lovely about it. And not every one of these necessarily goes with the other makeup that I have on my face, but I'm also not wearing bronzer or contour or anything because I wanted to show you the colors in and of themselves. So just try and compare the colors to each other. I have a neutral skin tone, so hopefully it's going to be pretty visible. But again, I'm going to compare them to other things in my collection in just a second. Okay, so the next ones are really interesting. So I first started by comparing Toasted Teddy and Sleepy Girl. We'll talk about Toasted Teddy first. Toasted Teddy is called a bronze terracotta, and I love a bronze terracotta, just on the face of it. So this is definitely a brown that has a little bit of like a burgundy mixed into it. So it's oddly like a rich, cool brown. And by cool, I mean it's just got a little bit of blue in it. It's not desaturated. It's definitely still quite saturated in terms of appearing brown and not taupe. You know, it doesn't have lavender added to it, but it does have a little bit of blue, probably black added to it, that's giving it richness, but not giving it so much warmth that it's gonna go hot orange on my skin. The next one is Sleepy Girl. Sleepy Girl is described as a soft mauve, and while the swatches are going to look very different from one another when I build them up, on the skin, I feel like these are just very beautifully like nuanced. They are obviously quite different, but they're both like beigey in-betweeny kind of colors. They're very easy to wear if they don't go ashy on you because they're like pre-mixed, you know? We're not talking about like primary colors. We're talking about these colors that have been dialed in to be worn alone. Does that mean that I wore them alone in the look that I'm wearing right now? No, I cannot resist layering blushes, but I do think that each one of these kind of has that same characteristic that I always talk about with the LYS blushes, where it's like, I don't have to know what the color profile is. I just need to know that when I put it on, it looks great, you know? And that's how I feel about these three sort of beigeier, more ambiguous colors. And today I am wearing Sleepy Girl on top of all of my other bronzer and everything like that. I'll put in a little time lapse of me putting this on. So I'm wearing tons of bronzer and my contour and the PRADA foundation and everything like that. But I used Sleepy Girl because I feel like A, it looks great with my skin, but B, it looks really good with this makeup look, but I still felt like it looked a little bit hollow. And so I did end up filling in with Piggy, just kind of at the very center of the focal point of my blush to give it that, again, that richness. If you haven't watched my video on hollow versus rich in terms of like building in mid-tones to get like the trueness of a color on your skin, I will link that down below, or maybe even at the end of the video. Maybe I'll put that one in at the end of the video, but I feel like they mixed beautifully to complement this look. And then finally, I put Freckle on both cheeks so that we could kind of do a split screen and show it against each of Toasted Teddy and Sleepy Girl. So I really like Freckle. I've been wearing Freckle as a topper on top of the Mi Cole Desert Date Multi-Stick in Dune because it's like such an ideal sunburn shade. But that shade is actually very similar to Toasted Teddy. It just happens to not be like shiny, but it works really beautifully on me. And again, it's like you use that and then you top it with Freckle, and that's what I was wearing in my last video. And it just looks like rich, sun-kissed skin. It's awesome. So Freckle is described as a neutral peach, but I'm kind of contextualizing it within these more ambiguous colors, right? These less saturated colors. And to me, it's just kind of like a beige that leans peach, whereas Sleepy Girl is a beige that leans mauve, and then Toasted Teddy is very much just like a brown that leans a little bit mauve. But I do feel like those three colors specifically are the most special. Like I said, we have comparisons for all of these, but I will be most interested to see how those stack up in my collection because they are harder colors to kind of put your finger on. All right, I'm going to go diving in my stash. I will be back. Oh, did we do a deep dive in my stash? I found dupes, like exact dupes for every shade that I have. So we could begin anywhere really. Starting here with Spicy Marg. I narrowed it down really. I thought we were gonna have this big coral throwdown, but it doesn't need to be that complex because I can tell you the colors that it is exactly like, and therefore all the ones that it is not like. If you have Rare Beauty Joy, this over here is Spicy Marg. That is Rare Beauty Joy, you know, the original hot coral in my opinion. If you have Charlotte Tilbury Peach Pop, you already have this color. If you have RMS Smile, you already have this color. If you have my Finding Ferdinand blush in Aperitif, you already have this color and it will work on deep skin tones. And this was just kind of a wild card I wanted to see. I kind of pulled out a bunch of the different Hourglass ones because they're new, to see how it compared, and these will also work on deep skin tones, and that is Future, and it is probably a really good option, even though it is gonna be less pink. But yeah, I mean, this is not a unique color. Those are all like main character blushes. Those are not deep cuts. Well, I mean, maybe my collection is a deep cut, but the rest are like very main character. Let's talk about Piggy. Piggy was probably the most difficult to find a dupe for in my collection, and I found some that are pretty similar to it and worth comparing. Although, where has Piggy gone? There she is. This little piggy went to market. Miss Piggy, a very beautiful, cool pink. If you have Lawless Gumdrop, you have something very similar to this color. If you have, and I don't necessarily recommend this formula, it doesn't last very long, but if you have it and you like it for some reason, this is the CL Blush and Protect in January. Pretty stinking similar. Then we get into a little bit more lilac. I have Glassy Lilac here from Haus Labs. She's gonna be more lilac. Ladoy. But this is just such, to me, like a great shade for people who like this colorway but kind of need to like go a little more extreme because they have like an olive undertone or something. Glassy Lilac is a really special color. It's not quite as all the way to lavender and ashy as the baby pink is from ABH, but that's why I featured it here and that's why I didn't pull the baby pink from ABH. And then I thought it was kind of worth it to compare Coquette on here just because, you know, she is so pink from Westman Atelier and it's just a different pink. It's just less purple. You know, it's a much more neutral pink by comparison. I would say that Piggy out of all of these is the most unique. Like, I wouldn't say special because I think that any of these would kind of achieve the same thing, but it is the most unique to my collection. And I would say that the second most unique is Toasted Teddy. It was one that was just like, it's so brown. You know, it's this really, really gorgeous terracotta. I think it's a really pretty, just like very crowd pleasing color, you know? It's got a lot of complexity to it. It's a lot of fun. So I have here Ignite from Phytosurgence. This was definitely one where I had to dip into my Phytosurgence shades because I pulled a bunch of them. And this was the one that was the most similar. That speaks highly of the color because Jason of Phytosurgence does not make normal colors. Jason is not selling in Sephora where he has to consider pleasing business daddy as part of his calculus of coming up with colors. I think that that is the biggest advantage to shopping Phytosurgence is that they are gorgeous formulas at an affordable price and the colors are almost nowhere else. Like he makes colors that literally like look so beautiful but you can't find them anywhere else because they're just so nuanced. They're like, you know, they're just grungy. It's just a lot of really grungy colors and you can tell this is even even still a little grungier than Toasted Teddy, but it is definitely the closest one, and that again is Ignite. I did pull like Inferno. I think Inferno was also pretty close. Oh wait, I misspoke. Inferno is actually the one that's really close. I mixed them up. So yeah, Inferno is actually the exact dupe. It's Inferno. I bet it was like experts in this brand were probably screaming at me. I personally have a really hard time disambiguating all the names of his shades in my head. He's a Virgo and I'm an Aries, and I'm like, starts with an I and means fire. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's like 12 of those, Khaki. That's not really helpful. So I'm going to wipe off that other one here and I'll show you. I mean, they are freaking identical. Like, did Haley pull this out of her brain or did she take it from Jason? I mean, it's just I'm just asking questions. Cause yeah, those are so freaking similar. And I mean, I have to recommend Phytosurgence. It's just a really great value and they're incredible formulas. So there is what I would call like an excitingly exact dupe. I also, if you have already, the Makeup Forever palette, I think that probably the deeper persuasion of this, the brown probably is even closer because it's going to be richer, but the brown and the fairer one is also in the same temperature family and also has that really nice like translucence to it that's not going to go ashy on deep skin tones. I think that that's another thing that you can really tell about Jason's is that the richness of the pigment is so true that it just doesn't have, like, even though he makes grungy colors, they're not ashy, which is really fascinating. Then, like I said, I have the Desert Date in Dune from Ami Collet. There's a lot going on in my head right now. And this was just a different kind of formula because it's a little bit matte. I literally like cannot stop using this. It's so good. I was like decluttering and I had one more, maybe two more, and the colors just, I don't know, they were too vivid for me. Like I couldn't put little enough of them on. God, am I okay? But this, if you already have that, you don't need Toasted Teddy. They're so similar. And that's it, really. In my whole collection, those are the similar ones, but I think that they're dead ringers, especially Inferno. Ignite and Inferno are really similar. But no, definitely Inferno. Inferno is the one that's more orange. Yeah, Inferno is the Phytosurgence shade that is an exact dupe for Toasted Teddy. And I should really say it's the other way around. She duped Jason. Jason, you famous! I know that Jason happens to love Haley, so I'm sure he takes it as a compliment. Next! By the way, what I just did, the next, that is like borrowed from Grace Helbig because she's always been like one of my favorite comedic YouTubers, and she's back and better than ever. I highly recommend going and checking her channel out. It is so nice to have one of my OGs back on the platform. She's back and better than ever. This is strangely kind of a big category because it's this like soft peach family, and so it can kind of go towards like the nudie beige. So this is Freckle. It's definitely a muted peach, and I think that my favorite muted peach is Virtue from Rare Beauty. Rare Beauty, to my knowledge, has not put out, yeah, it's a dead ringer. It has not put out like a lilac and an orange yet, you know, the trendy colors of the season, but other than that, they have such a vast collection of really dialed in shades. I feel like you can find a Rare Beauty blush shade for every blush that's out there, basically. So anyway, that is Virtue, which means that it is also very similar to, say, Cutie, because that is also the same gosh darn color. It also is going to be the same color as Guava from Persona. They're all the same color, basically. It's that desaturated kind of peachy coral. I also pulled a couple of my beiges from my original Summer Broad collection if you happen to have those. So this is Olay, so it's the medium one. I would say that that's probably the closest one. And then here is Latte, which is the lightest one. And the Macchiato is going to be much deeper. So you can see, I would say that Olay is the one. I'll go ahead and wipe off Latte. I have a tiny brush. I always do that. I have Louise here from Violette FR, and that's her peach shade, but you can see it's pinker. It looks practically mauve by comparison. I have the LYS Higher Standard blush. This is in Kindness, which is their muted kind of peach, and it is like lighter, you know what I mean? It's just got more white in it, but it's the same color value. And then the only other one that I have here that I don't think it's that similar, but it might be good for reference because this is just such like a good nude blush for fair skin. So this is Loyal from Hourglass. It's nothing like it. So, you know, these are really good examples, these two, of like beige, right? And like how beige is going to look mauve by comparison to this. It is a complex peach, but it is still peach. And so it's like, you know, Rare Beauty Virtue and Cutie from Say, also, like I said, Guava, and Olay from my collection are gonna be the most similar to it. And last we have, honestly, I might have misspoken. I think mauve, because it's such a broad, vague category. Mauve might be the most oversaturated shade in my blush collection, so I might kind of narrow this down as we go. I have a lot. So, our final girl here, before I go into kind of a voiceover to talk about, I always want to call it Fruit Punch, Juice Box, we have Sleepy Girl, which I really, really like this shade. I think that if I were gonna rebuy them, I would definitely buy Sleepy Girl. Like, I just think that it's a really cool shade. It's just an easy one to wear by itself, you know? So there she is, kind of just in-between color. I am actually sure that there is a Phytosurgence shade for this also, but I just don't have every single one of his shades on hand. If it is not condensate, then I don't know what it is. There's a thunderstorm happening outside. The Rare Beauty blush in Encourage, fairly similar there. That's Petal from West Motelli. That's quite pink. That's not it. We have Carmel, which is the new mauve from, still not quite right, from Persona. I can't remember exactly how this ended up going down, but that's Garçon from West Motelli, and they're quite similar. Then we have Haus Labs Glassy Hibiscus. Yes, look how similar she is. Wow, 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 wow. Definitely a little tiny bit less gray, but still. Then I have LYS Confident, which is this like very weird color that happens to be also a gorgeous mauve, but it has a little more of like a rustiness to it. It's just so good. LYS does such a good job. And then oddly, y'all, I have two elusives that are two different colors from ARMANI. It's like Old Elusive and New Elusive. Old Elusive, she looks like that. New Elusive, she looks like that. Those are two different colors. The Old Elusive is very cool, and the new one has more warmth to it. Is that not weird? That is super weird. So yeah, they have changed that color. I would say that the Old Elusive, dead ringer. Not that that helps. And then I have Fume from Phytosurgence. Yeah, it's right there. It's super duper similar. Super duper similar. Yeah, the longer I look at it, Fume is so, I mean, it's just exactly the same color. Look at that. All right, now that my table is covered in blush and my hands actually are not, I'm gonna go into a voiceover and talk about Juice Box. And again, I want to thank Rebecca. I will link her blog below. She does a lot of really, really great stuff there. So if you are interested, definitely go check her out. She's one of my best friends. And yeah, I wanna thank her for putting together all these swatches for me because I prematurely gave away one of the blushes. All right, so the long swatch there on the left obviously is Juice Box, and there you can see kind of a loop in natural light of how they all look, but oddly enough, the most similar is my shade High Noon in Finding Ferdinand. I think that Phytosurgence Simmer is also quite similar. And then she also found that a shade in the Hourglass palette was quite similar as well. She did make note that this is a very unique shade. And again, the reason that I gave this to her is because it's just so saturated, and this kind of pink tends to turn very, very unnaturally pink on me, and it has a little bit of coolness to it as well. So on her olive skin, and also she has a high contrast complexion, it actually looks really natural and at home on her skin. Okay, so I want to describe the formula here. It is creamy. It is. It's very melty creamy. It is very similar. I feel like it's like if someone were to have taken Phytosurgence's blushes and just added more wax to them so that they were stable enough to be in a stick instead of this like melty kind of, you know, chocolate texture. Very similar level of pigmentation. If you've got like a lot of Phytosurgence blushes and you really like them, you do not need Hailey's blushes. If you have very deep skin, you definitely do not need Hailey's blushes. But are they cute? Are they fun? Yes. I would also maybe, again, compare them to the Haus Labs ones, except they have just a little more opacity than the Haus Labs ones, and I kind of think that that's a compliment to Haus Labs. Even though these weren't my favorite, I went into them with a glassy expectation, and they don't go glassy on every single face of makeup. They don't work as well on top of powder as something like this does. I just feel like it has a little bit more creaminess and less gel to it, whereas this has a little more gel to it kind of thing. I don't hate them. I think that they're quite lovely. I just don't think that they are unique. And I'm not really sure that she set out to make them unique. You know, I think that Hailey Bieber just knows that she can sell Hailey Bieber, and that's what she was doing. They're very, very pretty. They're very, very good. They're very, very wearable. I do want to talk quickly about the component because it seems to be really ticking some people off. This is the size of it. I don't think that they're tiny. The biggest thing that I would change is the fact that this lid snaps, because grabbing this little piece of plastic like that and pulling it off is really hard to do. I would much rather have liked them to twist off. That would be so much easier. I also think that for her budget, because she's Hailey Bieber, she's making money hand over fist, the components could have reflected the color inside. It's not like these are refillable. These are not forever components, and that's the way a lot of blushes are. But I feel like there's a different standard for someone with a Hailey Bieber budget, you know? So do you need these? I think that they're cute. I think that if you wanted them, you already have them. If you don't have them and you have the colors that I showed you already, you absolutely don't need them, because again, they're not that uncommon. I think that that kind of goes without saying. If you, again, have deep skin, like very, very deep skin, you do not need them. But do I think that they're lovely? Yes, it's very hard to be special in the world these days in terms of makeup or anything, just because everything has been done to death and back. So I think that for what they are, they're very, very pretty. They're very lovely. I've enjoyed using them. I think they're very user-friendly. They're very, very pretty. They work beautifully on bare skin or on top of makeup. They layer beautifully. They wear all day. Like, they are a fantastic formula. They're just a combination of things that I like that also exist other places. So it was worth noting that, especially because I don't want y'all to have a bunch of the same thing in your collection. It's still $24 of your money. So I hope y'all found this valuable. If there's anything else I can answer, please leave it in a comment down below. I will do my best to check those, at least for like the first day after the video goes up. I have more things coming, y'all. I'm so sorry. I'm so backed up on reviews, but I got a lot of feedback from y'all on Instagram about the reviews that you're still waiting for. And if you didn't get a chance to chime in on that, please go follow me on Instagram. It's weird. I'm weird. Not like pick me weird. I'm just weird, okay? Like, I just want to prepare you for my humor, my stories. My meme taste is a little weird. So anyway, if you like that kind of thing and also some fun actual, you know, makeup content, and you want to weigh in on my future videos, then go follow me. It's at Hey Khaki. And if this is my first video of yours that you're watching, nope. If this is your first time to my channel, subscribe while you're here, because this is actually what I set out to do, was deep dive reviews on beauty, and that is why I have the massive collection that I have, is so that I can compare it and show y'all if you already own it. If that sounds good to you, please subscribe while you're here. We would love to have you, and thank y'all for being so patient. I'll put a video up here that I think that y'all will like if you enjoyed this one. In fact, I mentioned one earlier that I will stick up there. Don't remember which one. Editing Khaki will remember. So yeah, I love y'all very much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.